Hello, neighbor. This is Robert J. Ray, president of the Organism Chapter 4, coming to you again. And I'm anxious to do the deaf and dying, genuine truth about deaf and dying. Uh, I know you haven't seen me in a while, but I'm going to explain that to you in a few minutes. Before we start the deaf and dying session, I have a burning desire to share something with you about Google and the YouTube corporation. Now, I put my first video on YouTube in December 2020, and people began to be pulled to me in my videos. And I went almost a whole year putting videos on there. I got about 51 videos on there now that YouTube is making ad money from. And one of my videos went 63,000 views, another one 40,000 and 20,000. In all, I have over 300 and something views on my video. And they had made a contract to pay me $22 per view when you first start out. And then more than that if your videos do better. Like the 63,000, they claimed they was going to pay me $174 per view. And we was excited. And my technician, Little Sam, he was 17, but he can maneuver through this information highway. I look at it, I'm amazed at it sometimes. I'm just computer literate. I can just do some things. And we started putting out videos on there. People started liking it, getting comments, and YouTube cooperation support kept telling us, Mr. Ray, they really like your videos. Just keep up the good work. And after about a year, coming in on a year, I think it was October, that's when I achieved YouTube partner status. I had 1,000 subscribers, and I had 4,000 watch hours. And that's what you have to become a YouTube partner. And I did that. And then they after that, they make you jump through another hoop where you got to have $100 of ad threshold money, they call it, before you can get paid any money. And I did that. And this is what I want you to see. This is YouTube letter that came from CEO Susan Wojcicki. This is what she wrote me. Saying, "Hi there, Robert. This letter is being sent to you in regards to your monthly salary, which has reached $7,500,000. Congratulations on that huge milestone, and we are happy that you have put in the hard work to get to that goal. You've also reached $50,000 on Social Blade, which will be added to your payment, which is on 11/25/21. That will be issued to you. If you have any questions, please contact us. We will be happy to assist you. Have a great day." Now you can imagine how excited and happy I was to hear that and to be able to share that with the family clan, my son, and all of this. And we were going to have a beautiful Thanksgiving, and the money didn't get there. It didn't come. We wondered why. And when you can't call Susan Wojcicki, you can't call any of these guys up at the top there. And they would send me an email saying that they were going to put 25% of the 7.5 million in my checking account, which turned out to be $2,500,000. But no money. Haven't seen a penny yet of that money. And in December, they sent out a bulletin, and it was on my site too, that hey, we delayed on paying people in December. Now this is December. This is Christmas. This way everybody expecting to have money to spend on their gifts, on their family and stuff. And these cruel people at YouTube, oh, we're not going to pay you for December. If you wasn't going to pay any month, it shouldn't have been the month of December. But they didn't pay. And then in January, the 1st of January around there, they came and said that we got everything fixed on the delay. We're going to be sending the money out on the 21st to the 26th as usual. Came around, no money. No money in my checking account. So you can imagine how zapping that was to my family and my clan. And to me, and I started wondering, I said, wait a minute, is this a real, genuine, true company here? Or is this a big supernatural Ponzi scheme? And if it is, it's a genius one, because it makes everybody think like YouTube is a rich company. They making money. You can make money. And but some people, they're not paying the money. And I'm one of them. A lot of people said, Mr. Ray, you gonna believe that letter like that? That's a scam. It may have made sense to be a scam if I would have got another letter saying how much money that I was going to get for real. Since I didn't get but one letter, I'm assuming that this letter was correct, because they made over $20-some million off of my videos, probably more than that. And that was my portion. You always want to get your portion. That's all I want is my portion. But they won't even send me my portion. And they've hurt my feelings, and they made me sad, and they made me angry. And like my mentor always told me, everybody's ass is up for grabs. And that includes you, YouTube and Google people. That includes you, Susan Wojcicki, and you, the CEO of Google, Thomas Curran, and you people, 3 people that supposedly created YouTube, Chad Hurley, Jawed Kareem, and Steve Chen. Why would y'all do that? I mean, you can fool some of the people some of the time, and you can fool some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time, and that's where you made your mistake. I got my attorney. They call him the pit bull because he said he don't give up, and I got him ready to file a $200 billion, $7,500,000 lawsuit against y'all. Something has to be done, because my technician, Lil Sam, he said that there was a lot of people saying that they wouldn't get paid. And when you got a company running and a lot of people claiming that they're not getting paid, that's a Ponzi scheme. So I'm asking you, Susan Wojcicki and her clan, and Thomas Curran of Google, the parent company of YouTube, and you 3, Hurley, Kareem, and Chen, are y'all running a supernatural Ponzi scheme that is so complicated that can't nobody get to you all? Because you can't. I know we can't talk to you. We can't get you on the phone. You won't talk to anybody on the phone. You send these little texts out there at the bottom, and they got a script that they follow. Because I've done that before. I worked at a what they call a hot house or whatever, where they give you a script and they just say this to them. And that's all they've been doing. Me and Little Sam have been trying to find out where my money is and why won't they pay since November. And we can't get an answer. And they even said that they tried to put my money in Citizen National Bank here in Maria, Mississippi. And the Citizen National Bank say, no one of it. And they call it a scam. Then they sent me a message that my money was out in Kansas City at a bank out there on Berry Street. So I'm saying, look, what's going on here? So I call out to the bank out there, and it was a real bank. And I talked to Jessica out there, and I said, Jessica, they say they sent my money there, and it was a mistake if they did when you check on it. She checked on it, they hadn't sent any money there. And we talking to the tech that's telling us that that's where the money is, and that it had been approved to be put in that bank out there. We come back and tell us that them people said there hadn't been any money put in there for Robert Ray, and they don't know what y'all talking about. Then the people from Google, from YouTube, back up off of that and say, "Oh, it was pending to go in there, but now it's back in the bank in our revenue place, and you'll be getting your share in January when we pay out, which is from the 21st to the 26th." January come around, no money, no money. Then when we started asking about the money, they shut down. They've shut my channel down twice because we was asking about the money. I mean, they wiped out my whole field. They wiped out everything. It's just like Ray didn't exist. Now, all of these incidents like this, what would you think? Would you think this is some kind of scheme that they are running? Although Google is said to be worth $1,600,000,000, and Google itself and YouTube itself is supposed to be worth $500 billion itself. And all of these like Wojciechowski and them, they worth $140-some million themselves up there. But they won't pay the YouTube partner like myself. I don't get it. The only thing I can think is that it's something illegal going on. And I don't know if they think that this Ponzi scheme is unbreakable, then they're sadly mistaken. Because Ron ain't never been wrong when he says that everybody's ass is up for grabs. Ask Trump. Ask the President of the United States, Trump, is your ass up for grabs or not? And I don't think y'all have gotten to that status yet. I'm saying that, why don't you just pay me? I mean, you got paying that kind of money to y'all is just like we paying out hundreds of dollars. But if you don't, then your ass have to be up for grabs, and we come. And you don't want, and see, and once we get the FBI in there, and the CIA, and the Justice Department, and the Internal Revenue, and the Federal Trade Commission to start looking into all of this stuff, because there's something going on. It's definitely something going on. And if y'all think y'all are untouchable, just hang around here in America. Just hang around. And you'll see that your ass will be up for grabs. That's all I got to share about YouTube, I think. But you people, Susan Wojciechowski and Thomas Corraine and Chad Hurley and Jad Kareem and Steve Chin, when you go to sleep at night, you better start thinking about it's going to become a knock on your door one of these times, unless y'all fix this stuff. And here is the I almost forgot to read this to you people. This here is the YouTube agreement that they have these people punch in and sign. I didn't sign it. My little Sam, my technical guy signed it, and he signed. He said he signed it, Mr. Ray, because he wanted me to wanted me to be a YouTube partner. And I said, yeah, but I wouldn't have signed this. And this is what it said. This is a YouTube agreement. And this is what all of the innocent, talented people have to sign in order to try to be a YouTube. And here's what it reads. Limitation and liability. Except as required by applicable law, YouTube, its affiliate officers, directors, employees, and agents will not be responsible for any loss of profit, revenue, business opportunity, goodwill, or anticipated savings, loss, or corruption of data, indirect or consequential loss, punitive damages caused by errors, mistakes, or inaccuracies of service, personal injury, property damage resulting from use of service, any unauthorized access to a use of service, any interruption of cessation of service, any viruses or malicious code transmitted or through the service by any third party, any content whether submitted by a user of YouTube, including your use of content and or the removal or unavailability of any content. This provision applies to any claim regardless of whether the claim asserted is based on warranty, contract, tort, or any other legal theory. YouTube and its affiliates total liability for any claim arising from or relating to the service is limited to the greater of the amount of revenue that YouTube have paid to you from your use of the service in the 12 months before the date of your notice in writing to YouTube the claim and or be USD $500. This is not an agreement. This is a one-way ticket to hell for the person that signed it. Now, I wouldn't have signed this. But since my tech, he was 17, he signed it. Now I'm going to have to go all the way through with it. I'm going to have to take this to court. This is not any agreement. This is just all one way. We get everything and you get nothing. This is what Google, that's that contract. And then when you become a YouTube partner, you got other agreements and contracts that they want you to sign. And in other words, they just want you to bend over and just take it as many times as they want to give it to you. In the Organism Chapter 4, we don't do that. We claim ourselves. And that's exactly what I'm claiming. The ad revenue for YouTube and Google is $15 billion. And this comes from their content creators. That means the people that put up these videos, all of the ones that put up, and all of the ones that don't become YouTube partners. Their video will be running to eternity while Google make money off of it and you make nothing, not a penny. Do you people feel like that's a contract? That's an agreement? What is that? But this is what I feel. I had a burning desire to share that. They may not show this. You may not see this on this channel, on the YouTube channel. But it's being picked up on some other channels also. So they're not going to be able to get rid of it. It's going to be out there in the public domain eventually. I'm just sad and hurt that YouTube double-crossed me like they did. And now I'm anxious to move on to the deaf and dying session, which is going to be a very exciting session, and it's going to be very informative. Now, I was born in 1946, and kids born then, they had everything going for them. You know, they didn't have all of these diseases. They didn't have the gangbangers shooting and killing them and everything like that. And I was a happy kid. I was. I lived out 2 places I lived during my youth, and that was Trenton, New Jersey, and Preston, Mississippi, which we was in the Mount Salem community, and then you had other communities like Oak Grove community where a lot of the Jacksons lived, and then you had the Sinai community, Golston community, and everybody had their little communities where they lived and worked at, farmed at, and they went to church there. And I didn't really think too much about death at that point in time. And I was 8 years old, and we had a lady in the community named Miss Tempe, and she was such a loving lady, and she was a very good cook. And when we had dinner on the ground out at the church, I don't know if you people know dinner on the ground. That's when all of the members bring their cookware stuff to the church, and everybody eat out there on special occasions. And she always had a big trunk, and she would have it full of food. And when she leave that evening, she wouldn't have a crumb. That's just how good because she would. Sonny, come over. That's what they call me out in Mount Salem. Sonny, come over and get some of this banana pudding. Sonny, come over and get some of this cake. Sonny, come over and get some of this fried chicken. And I always mostly ate my grandmother's food, but I would go over and get some of her stuff. And then she died. And we had to go to the funeral. I went out to the church to the funeral and had to go up and look at the casket. And there Miss Tempe was just laid out, just like she was sleeping. And then we wasn't going to be able to hear her voice anymore. It kind of knocked me back. I said, this death is something that's really nobody wants to experience. And Miss Tempe was buried, and we went on with our life. I remember she used to come over. We would look down the road. Her and her husband would be walking down. They would visit people in the community, go over and sit and talk about everybody else in the community. But it wasn't ever anything that was negative. It was always positive things that she would say about people if she talked about. She talked about the kids, if they made A's, or did good in school, or if they went to visit somebody. Some of the relatives came down. She was just a joy to have in the community. But life goes on. We went on. And the next death that I was 8, next death that that struck me was the Emmett Till death, which happened when he came down from Chicago to visit his folks in Money, Mississippi. And these two white men snatched him out of bed at his uncle's house when I took him out and murdered him and just beat him up. His face looked like a monster's face. And his mother made sure that everybody in the world saw that. And and I was saying, would two grown-ups kill a kid like that? I don't care what color they were. Would they kill a kid? And the answer was yes, they did, because they admitted doing it. They got paid money from Look magazine or some magazine. They got money, and they said they admitted they killed him. And the white jury let him go. So we weren't surprised. We weren't looking for any conviction. The ones of us who lived down here in Mississippi, we knew. And then, after that, we got on with our lives. And then in 56, I think it was, we had twins get drowned at the school. Saw them every day. That we knew they loved each other like twins do. They shared each other, everything. And we got word one day that they had drowned. They were swimming in a pond. And one of them had got sucked down by a sinkhole, which will suck you down. And if you really don't know how to get out of it, you'll drown. But the other twin went down there to try to get him out of it. And I guess they couldn't get him out of it, and both of them drowned. That was another kick in the head. That was a double funeral. Hadn't seen that before. And now I'm beginning to think that, kids can die. It's a reality that we have to really look at. But, in the 50s, you didn't expect kids to die. Even though we had polio and mumps and measles and all of that kind of diseases and stuff, they wasn't expected to die. And hardly any of them ever did. Then, after that, one of our female kids was struck by lightning in the field. And if you know anything about a hoe, you know you got this long wood house and you got a piece of metal on the end of it that you chop cotton with, and you chop the corn, clear the weeds out of the corn. And they stayed too long in the field. And a lot of times if you stayed on some white man's place, and I don't know if she did or not, but they would want you to stay out in the field until the rain came. It'd be thunder. And now lightning could be 6-10 miles away, and the sun could still be shining, and lightning could hit you and kill you. So after she got killed, a lot of people started saying, well, hey, we're not going to stay in the field. And once we start hearing thunder and lightning coming in, we see the dark clouds coming in, we're going to head to the house, regardless. And so the white people that let people sharecrop, they just forgot about that. They say, hey, come on when you get ready. And that she did that. Because she died from that lightning strike, she made it so that if you was in the field horn and you hear thunder and lightning, you get on out of there. You go on home. And that kept a lot of other people from probably getting killed. And we would go back and we would see her empty desk when she said, and she was like a comedian, first female comedian, because she would have people laughing. She was such dry wit, and the teacher would ask her a question and she would have a funny answer for it. But there it was, the desk was there. And it stayed empty until somebody moved into that neighborhood and was in that same grade as we was and got her chair. And after that, I didn't have any, we went on with ourselves. You get over things quickly. And I didn't experience death anymore until 1959. And I must have been 56 or 7. So I must have been 13 then, in 59. And my Uncle Frank Jackson and my cousin Luther Jackson came down from Michigan to visit the family. They were working for General Motors up there, and they, had bought new cars and all of that, and they always come down in the summertime. And we have a joyous time. And so my Uncle Frank, favorite Uncle Frank, he had taught me how to drive tractor at 4 years old, truck at 9, taught me I would watch him dress when he go out to court, see some girl, taught me how to dress and all of that. And that's where I came up. And he came down, he and cousin Luther Jackson, and they went down to Philadelphia. And they went to a juke joint down there. And let me take a swallow of Chowa. And they was out there partying at a juke joint, and Luther started talking to this one chick, and he probably didn't know that she was sleeping with the deputy sheriff's a friend of his who was white. They was white. And when they left the juke joint, Luther left with the chick, with the girl that the sheriff's deputy friend was sleeping with. And that went on in the South all the time. White men always loved to have sex with black women. And so Frank said, well, what you want me to do? So Luther told him to go on. And I don't know if Frank had got him a chick was ready to go on, or he was ready to come on back to the house. But the next day we heard Luther had got shot. The deputy had stopped the car, told Luther to get out the car. As soon as he stepped out, he shot him. Killed him. Luther died right there. That was another kick in the head. But that wasn't a kid. That was our cousin, Luther. So we had to have that funeral. That was a kind of spooky funeral because Luther was a twin, and we were looking at Luther in the casket, And then we would look at Buford. It was Luther and Buford. And we were looking at Buford looking just like Luther. And that was a kick in the head. Then we had to experience that. So then I know it really just devastated my Uncle Frank. He weighed on him a long time because he was thinking, what could I have done? But you can't do nothing. I've been in that predicament before. Me and my friend went somewhere. He got hooked up with a chick. I got hooked up with a chick, and we partied. We see you tomorrow. That's all that is. Ain't nothing that you can do. That's divine providence. I don't think the family. If the family blamed my Uncle Frank, they never did say it. And I think they just thought that it was just providence like anything else. Then the next deaths I experienced was when I went to school down at T.J. Harris. And the only death we had in that whole 3 years I went to the high school, one of the Barlow brothers. And they was twins. And one of them got to wrestling around there, how you get to tussling. And some kind of way he fell back and hit his head on the cement. And I guess you can't take that kind of blow. And they took him to the hospital, but he died. That was the only death there. Then in the summer of freedom, 1964, down in Marie, Mississippi, that's when the COFO, Congress for Racial Equality, people started coming down from the north. And my Uncle Fully, whose name was John Burrow, had a taxi stand down there right below the COFO office. And he had hired me as a taxi dispatcher for the summer till I went back to school. And my shift was from 3 to 11. And I got a chance to talk to all of the people that came down, especially Michael and James, because they would always come to the taxi stand to find out where to go at different places. And I was always anxious about them because it was just dangerous for a black person to be riding around in a car with a white person in the front seat. Like they was in relationship. And I would always caution James. I say, you're doing something dangerous. And but Michael, he never did think that they would kill him. He never did think that he knew that the FBI was supposed to be watching him, but they weren't watching that night that they got killed. If they was watching, they didn't do anything. And this particular time, they had burned a black church down in Philadelphia, near Philadelphia. And I just couldn't believe that these white people were that demonic that they would burn a church down. And I wanted to go see. James and Michael had asked me to go with them. I don't know how many times, hundreds of times. They come on, go with. But my shift was so that when they get in the morning, they plan out where they're going to go that day, and they take off about 11, 12 o'clock. Then they come back in the evening time. And I would be working in the evening, so I couldn't ever go. But this particular trip, they were going to go in the morning early down there and talk to the people at the church, and we were going to be able to see the church. And then they were going to come back, and I would get back to work on time. But Providence had it so that Uncle Fully came by and said, hey, I need you to work this morning. The ladies can't make it this morning. And for some reason, I went on down to the cab stand. I got dressed, went on down to the cab stand, and started dispatching. And then here come Michael, James, and the white guy had just got into town the day before or something, and he wanted to go. They took him instead of me, and in that station wagon, Ford station wagon, 63 Ford station wagon or something like that, and I had to stay behind. The next thing I heard is that they had got arrested down in Philadelphia. Then the next thing I heard is that they had let him out about dark. It don't take but about 45 minutes to get back from Philadelphia to the Meridian. So everybody waiting, and they never showed up. So what they really did was let them out at dark, and the deputy sheriff, and the Ku Klux Klan was going to ambush them, and that's what they did. The deputy sheriff, red light turned on, and they stopped, and they got them out of there and took them up another little road, and they murdered them, took them down, and buried them in the dam. So I was really tense and anxious. And then about 10 o'clock, the other COFO workers started milling around downstairs, down there, and a couple of the females come over and ask me, say, Robert, Ray, what do you think is going to happen? And I just looked at them and said, hey, they gone. And they kind of frowned, going. I said, they're dead. And they kind of started breaking down crying because I think they kind of thought it also. But then when they heard it, when somebody spoke it, then they started breaking down, started crying. And then after my mother, who was living in Nashville, Tennessee, up at Tennessee State with my aunt, who was a teacher up there, and she was teaching at Tennessee State, and she was the counselor over the New Women's Dorm. They wouldn't allow me to stay down there anymore after they found out that I was almost had went with them, and that I might get mixed up in it even deeper now. They ordered me up to Nashville. And my Uncle Willie, he made sure he went, said, hey, I'm going to take you to the bus, you're going to get out of here. My Uncle Willie, he got a story to tell too. They used to try to kill and hang him back during the day. He stayed a lot of his life out in the woods. And my grandmother and my aunt, he would sneak up to the house at night, and they would give him bags of food and everything, and then he would go back out in the woods and stay. And they was trying to because he had beat up some white people. He didn't care who it was. If you crossed him, you had to take a ass whooping or either beat his ass. And he had beat up a lot of white men, and they were wanting to hang. But anyway, he took me to the bus. I got out of there, got up to Nashville, had a talk with my aunt. She said, well, I'm going to get you registered in Tennessee State, and it'll be good, be better if you didn't say anything about this. Don't say anything about you was supposed to be with them or that you was working with them or anything like that, because they got Ku Klux Klan up here too. So I got registered in college, enrolled in Tennessee State. We're going to Tennessee State. And they was talking about it. Where are the civil rights workers? Everybody was talking about it. And I couldn't say nothing. I didn't say anything about it. And then to try to get it off my mind and get out, I started drinking these little Mickeys, which was malt liquor. And I got addicted to them, and I started missing part of the class, and I was flunking out. So I decided to go up to New Jersey, where my stepdad was. My mother was married to him at one time, but they got a divorce. And my mother been married about 9 times because she was a beautiful woman, and men just fell for her anytime where she was. And but she had a drinking problem also, and I inherited that from her. And so I found myself in New Jersey, 1965. Me and my best friends in time, Willie and Powell, we got hooked up again. We started partying all over the East, and we went to New Jersey, and on the weekend we would go everywhere, and we'd meet chicks, and we were just having fun. But then I ended up after about the middle of the summer, about September, so my mother called and said they needed me to come up in Illinois. East Moline. Something happened to my mother or something like that. I think somebody had beat her up because some man had picked up at the bar, and he had took her home, and his wife had came, and so I had to go up there and see about that situation. And I ended up in Moline, Illinois, and I started working for Plow Works up there, John Deere Plow Works. And I met a friend working at Plow Works. We became best friends in time. And we started just traveling around. He already had a nice car because he was 21, and the Plow Works had bought him a car at the credit union. And we'd have a convertible to ride around in and pick up chicks. And then they told me when I got 21, they would buy me one, which they did. Bought a black Oldsmobile convertible, and we were just playboys, so to speak. And I met the girl who was going to be my wife at Ike and Tina Turner dance in Davenport, Iowa. That's where my best friend in town, Johnson, lived at. And it was just across the Mississippi River from Moline and East Moline. And I guess it was love at first sight at the Ike and Tina Turner. And me and her became an item. I stopped seeing all the other girls. And then when she finished, she was at the Job Corps at Clinton, Iowa. And she started, after she finished, she went back down to Georgia and stayed with her mother a while. And then we decided we would get married. We couldn't stay away from each other. I sent for her and she came back. By that time, they had wanted me to come to Michigan, Flint, Michigan. So I went up there, and when she came back to Illinois, we stayed there another week or so to pack up and get everything settled. And we headed out to Michigan in my black Oldsmobile. Then we got up there and my brother had a house and place for us to stay and all of that. And I got a job, and then we got married over at my brother's house. He bought a house. And then we lived down in the basement until we got the baby. Then we said, no, it's too cold in Michigan to live there with a baby down in the basement. So we moved out and got a house where we was up above over on Mary Street. And I was still drinking at the time. And in 1975, that was in 70. So my son was born in 70. In 1975, I had been having trouble at the job. And I was getting ready to get 90 days off for coming back to work from the bar late. And Andy Patani, he was the superintendent over the complex over at Dordt Highway. And every time he would see me in there, he would speak to me. And he said, what's wrong, Bob? I said, well, I got caught coming back from the late, and they're going to give me 90 days off. He said, come on down to my office. So I went out to his office. So he was saying, look like every time you get in trouble, you be drinking. I said, yeah, that's true. And he said, well, I want you to go down to this place in Flint called Insight and stay down there and get in a program down there, and I'll let you come back to work in 2 weeks. Boy, that just made my day. Because that 2 weeks I could go fishing for 2 weeks, but I went down there and I met Ron, who was to be my counselor, my therapist, and ended up being my mentor. And I ended up buying this franchise, the Organism Chapter 4 from the original organism, which he was the creator of and the president of. He and his wife Cynthia. And since I met him that day in 1975, I never took another drink of alcohol up until this day, because he was a genuine counseling therapist. He had a genuine process to get you through. And the same process I used in the prison for 11 years out there, they got those guys off of all their addiction, and they got out of prison, didn't go back to prison. which didn't sit well with GEO because they were based on people coming back to prison. But anyway, I did go back to work after 2 weeks, but I started going down to counseling therapy. And about halfway through counseling and therapy, he called me in his office and said, Robert, have you ever thought about, he said, Bob, have you ever thought about becoming a counselor, alcohol and drug counselor? Because they don't have any black counselors, and y'all have a lot of addiction in y'all's race. And I said, I don't know. I could never see myself getting up trying to tell other people what to do and straightening other people's lives out. And he said, I'm going to train you there. I said, I come from Mississippi. I got to talk Southern, slow, and I wouldn't know what to say to any white people that got up there and that were more educated than me. How would I? He said, I'm going to train you how to do that. So I said, well, I can talk to my wife. So I went on and talked to my wife. She laughed like that giggle when all them other lame brain, hair-brain ideas I'd had that didn't ever come through because I get to drinking in it. Like I was going to be a famous writer one time. I had all these famous writers' books, and I get to writing some and drinking beer, and before you know it, I'll be done passed out. But because she thought it was fun and laugh, I went on through it, and I did become a counselor, I went through the counseling, and then I went to training, and then I went out to the organism to start training that Sunday, because the training took place from 9 a.m. on Sunday to 6 p.m. at the organism, down in the basement. And I was standing out there on the porch with the rest of us who was going to be in training, and I started to light a cool cigarette. And Ron came to the door and looked at the screen, and he just looked at me and he shook his head. And he just turned around. So I went in there. I said, what's wrong? What was that about? He said that you're probably not going to be a quality counselor because you're dealing with the best manipulators in the world, alcoholics and drug addicts. And they're not going to listen to you if you're addicted. You're trying to get them from being addicted, and you're addicted every time you get a break, you run in to get a cigarette. And after that, I took those cigarettes in and threw them in the garbage. I never smoked another cigarette. So that's the kind of effect that Ron had on you. A lot of individuals say he was a lot of preachers that heard about him say that he was a similitude of Jesus Christ. That he behaved like Jesus did when he was in the world. He gathered disciples, healed people, got people's mental health together. And I started training. That was in October 76. December 76, while we was in training, Ron got sick. And you didn't look for Ron to get sick. He was the last person you would think to get sick. And because he used to run 5 miles a day, every other day. And because I went out there and ran with him several times. Because I wanted to be where he was. I wanted to be with him. I wanted to ask him questions. I wanted to hear what he had to say. And he would talk to me. We'd get to running, and we would run so far, and I would get tired, and I would have to walk. So I would walk and run, and he would be back at the organism and took a shower and everything when I show up. And I think I got to run. I think one time I got to run the whole 5 miles with him and didn't stop. Although he was a little ahead of me a few times, but he saw me running, he would kind of slow down and let me catch up a little bit. But most of the time I had to stop halfway and then walk and run the rest of the way to get my lungs. And then he had a party. They had a party out there at the organism. All of the trainees was out there, and the people that had graduated from his program. And we was out there, and we had all healthy stuff, nothing negative, no negative stuff, no alcohol, nothing like that at these parties. And he came down the stairs, and you could tell he wasn't well. And he gave everybody a welcome and talked to everybody a while and said something to, certain people about their goals and everything. And he said he wasn't going to be coming down, but for us to enjoy ourselves and and have a good time. And when he started back upstairs, he said, "Bob, I want to see you upstairs." And that's what he always do. If he wanted to see you, when he got ready to end the group, if he did something that he'd had to touch with you about, he said he wanted to see you. So I went upstairs and he said, "I want you to promise me that if I don't make it, that you're going to continue your training, and then after you graduate training, you're going to continue to become a trainer of trainers and get the organism franchise." And I agreed. Of course, I wasn't thinking. I'm thinking, what are you talking about if he don't make it? Because I'm just thinking he's sick, got a cold, got a flu, something like this, and he'll make it back. But come to find out, he had acute leukemia. And the next thing I knew after the party, and before we could get back to the next Sunday training, they had took him to Ann Arbor, in our hospital down there, and they were supposed to have the best treatment for leukemia. I didn't know what leukemia was. I had heard that little white kids was getting it. I hadn't known any black kids would get it, but they get it now, just a bunch of white kids now. And but at that time, it's a blood disease where where the white cancer cells be eating up the red cancer cells. Something I didn't pay too much attention. I just knew it was doing him in. And I went down to see him, and we talked, and he made me promise again that if he didn't make it, I would go on through and help Cynthia run their organism, and Colleen, she was another person that helped did training, and he had trained them. He and Colleen and her husband had trained up under them, Cynthia and Ron, and he told us, "Hey, there's no need to come back anymore." Which I was sad because I wanted to get every minute I could with him, but I obeyed his wishes and I didn't go back down anymore. But Cynthia was the only one that could go down. And then Cynthia came back one Sunday and told us that Ron, she had asked Ron, said, "What is happening to us, Ron?" And she said, Ron looked at her and said, "Outside of the fact that I'm dying, things couldn't be better for us." I mean, my best friend, Russ, we looked at each other like, can you believe that? That a person could say that? Now, here he is ready to make millions of dollars. And he did, because I helped Cynthia make millions of dollars out of her basement. So he would have probably been one of the first billionaires at that point in time. Because I know he would have expanded and everything. And so after that, I started talking to Russ about death. I said, "Can you figure that out?" Yeah. Because he had always said there's always more. And me and Russ, could he mean that it's always more after dying, after death? And I wanted to know. And then I started exploring that. I started reading stuff on death. I think I read the Book of the Dead, which didn't tell me nothing. And then my other best friend in time, he was in training. I was training him. He gave me this book called The Natural Depths in Man, and written by Wilson Van Dusen, who was a Swedenborgian. He had been in the Swedenborg years before I even knew Emanuel Swedenborg existed. And I I read that book, and at the beginning of the chapter, they would have a quote by Emmanuel Swedenborg. I said, "This is the guy. I should be reading him." And at the end of the book, they said the foundation, Swedenborg Foundation. So I wrote, matter of fact, I called him, and I told him I would like to find out more about this Emmanuel Swedenborg guy. And they said, "Well, we'll send you some material on it, but say one of the best ways is to buy the book, The Life and Teachings of Emmanuel Swedenborg," which I did. How much did I bought it right away. Oh, they sent me all this material on it. And I went through that material, and I say, what is wrong with this world? I say, this is what they should start teaching right away. When you're able to learn anything, they should be teaching you about Emmanuel Swedenborg. And the more I read Emmanuel Swedenborg, the more I found out that didn't anybody know who he was. Didn't anybody know who Emmanuel Swedenborg was. And so the floodgates just flew open. Emmanuel Swedenborg had been chosen by the infinite man Jesus to intromit him into the world of spirits. For the last 27 years of his life, he lived in this world. He was able to go into that world every day. And had anybody even known about this stuff? And if they did, they wouldn't let anybody know. Nobody but the Swedenborg Foundation or the people that had been reading Swedenborg. But now this whole new world had been opened up to me. And now I knew that you lived after you died, that there was a world that you wake up in after you die. That was the more that Ron Cornwell was speaking of, although he didn't know about it as thorough as Emmanuel Swedenborg knew about it. And I started reading all of Emmanuel Swedenborg books, and he had wrote volumes and volumes of it. And so the floodgate was open. I knew people lived after they died now, and I just read about it and read about what they went through over there in the world of spirits. And hey, I was cooking with gas then. I was in it. And then after I finished training with the organism and bought my franchise, I was coming back to Mississippi because this was going to be the revenge that I was going to get for Michael and James and Andrew. I was going to bring a process back that was going to make black people rational, and that everybody was going to become rational and be on the same intelligence level and rational level. And you couldn't look down on anybody, and you could talk to anybody about anything. And that was my plan and intention. And in a small way, I've done that. But they didn't accept me when I first come back. They blackballed me down here in Marie, Mississippi because of this process. I could only work with people individually. And I worked with a lot of people individually and fixed their lives individually. And then the chance, when the prison came in, they said they're going to build that prison. They needed 2 alcohol and drug counselors. And about 100 people put in for the 2 positions. But I talked to the warden and I talked to the deputy warden, and when I came out, they made me the lead counselor. That's just how I could win them over with my process. And then another guy that lived in Jackson, he became my co-counselor. And he had been trained in the Navy because the Navy got a lot of alcoholism there. So they had a program, they had a good program there, but it wasn't anywhere near the Organism Chapter 4's program. And so we developed that program out there, and we fixed so many men out there, and he fixed a lot of them out there. A lot of the men he fixed out there, they wasn't true alcoholics and drugs. They had opportunity. All they had to know is the material that he gave them and showed them. They could take that and go on, but there was others that needed much more, and then my process gave them that. And I did that for 11 years out there until they fired me because I was messing with their bottom line. I was getting too many men out of prison. They weren't coming back. And during that time, my mother when she was 59, 58 or something like that, she had a cyst on her breast. She went to the doctor, and the doctor told her, that's not anything but a cyst. I wouldn't worry about it. But it was cancer. It was breast cancer. And I was so angry because that was a year went by. The cancer was just steady growing, and I could have been working on it. But the year later, after we found out it was cancer, and then they had to remove one of the breast that was in, and they started giving her chemo, and then I got on all of the vitamins, especially vitamin C and vitamin E and D and all of and then I got on all of the cancer herbs I could find. I had on the superfood, and that's when you had to take it as a green powder. It wouldn't taste at all. I take it now. All I got to do is take capsules. I take the green capsule, just swallow it down, and my vitamin C every day, and that keeps me healthy, keeps me going. Even when I had that positive COVID test, and that zapped my energy for a few weeks, and it's still like it's long hauling me, like it's trying to just stick with me. But by the by, I'm coming back, so I know that I'm not gonna die from it. So, and I started putting on all of this stuff, and she just kept thriving with the breast cancer, even though she went out and took the chemotherapy down there. And all of those women that started with her died right on out, as usual with their chemo. There's a certain time you live with chemo and you die. She didn't die. And they wondered what was wrong. And every so often they would bring her back. And when they bring her back, she'd be thriving, but they would find another cancer. They would find the next cancer, they found lung cancer. She thrived, ain't missed a stroke. I had on the herbs that Jethro Claus had in his book, Back to Eden. He was curing people with cancer back in the early 1900s. So I knew his stuff was solid. And she would take it. The one thing about her, she took everything I brought her. I was working out at the prison. I was making money. I was spending money hand over foot for anything that they say would beat cancer back, would kill it down. And but everything I brought to her, she would take it, because she would say, hey, I'm out of that soy. I'm out of that Metalucas. I'm out of this. I'm out of the superfood. And I would go buy more food. And she took it, and she thrived. It kept her healthy. She kept living. And then she'd go back to the doctor, and they found liver cancer. So I started getting stuff for the liver. Yeah. Started pumping the liver up, getting everything I could find with the liver, along with what she was taking. And her husband, who was a miser and a dummy and an idiot, that's what we call him. But we treat him neighborly because of her. And he said, why are you taking that stuff like that? And she took everything, and she thrived and thrived. Then she went, now this is over a period of 5, 10, 15 years. She lived over 20 years with cancer. It took 4 cancers to kill her. Last time she went, they said, it's done got into your bones now. You got bone cancer. So I started getting stuff for the bone cancer. And I went over there one day. And she had stopped work then. She had said, I'm going to retire. She retired with all her benefits. And this was the best time for her to retire, because she got a nice big check from the state hospital. And she had all the insurance paid. She could go anywhere, get any operation there. So that's why she could go to the hospital, and they would get her right in, give her the best they had. And this particular day, I went over there to see her, holler at her like I did every day. And she said, Ray, can I stop using everything now? I'm just don't feel like Jesus is going to let me make it this time. And want to stop everything. She said, how you feel about that? And it kind of took me aback because I wanted to keep on going and keep on going to the end. And because I hadn't already saw something to order for the bone cancer, but I digressed, and I told her, I said, okay, you can stop. I said, and I gave her a hug and I kissed her on the forehead. I said, but you was a fighter. I said, yeah. She said, yeah, I know. And I said, it's been over 20 years, and we was excited about that. So she didn't take any more of my herbs and stuff like that. She started taking their hospice and stuff then, to keep them from being in so much pain. You can imagine how much pain a person would be in with 4 cancers. And my sister, her sister, my Aunt Budgie, and had come down to stay with her to the end. And my sister had come down to stay with her to the end. And me and my brother, we would go over every day, my brother Drew. And I kind of started getting them prepared for death. I had already told my mother not to worry about it. I said, because you'll be waking up over there where Lou Gusta and Jeannie and all the people that's been before you. And she didn't really buy into it. She knew it now because I had told her. And she was happy about thinking about that. And Christian, they thought that that's what would happen. But they thought it was going to be when Gable blew his horn out there in the future somewhere. They would have been in the grave for so many years and stuff like that. But I told her, no, it's not going to happen like that. I said, it's going to be in a few days at the most. And I had got her prepared. I had talked so much Swedenborg to her when we was going up to a Mount Salem church. They always loved to go up there, her and my aunt. And I took them up there, and I took her and my aunt up there until my aunt died, and then I took her up there until she died. And one Saturday morning, it was a storm, thunderstorm. And my sister called me and said, she's gone. So I jumped up and put on my clothes and got over there quickly because I wanted us to experience the angels coming to be with her. And how that happens, the way you know that the angels have came, it's a sweet fragrance, like flower, like a flower garden fragrance that the angels bring when they come. And if you stay with the body long enough, you can smell that. You can experience that. And that's what I wanted us to experience that morning. So I went over there, and my brother, he got there, and he started filming everything, and her eyes was open. So we decided to close our eyes and let her go. And I said, I'm going to sit up at the head. And my aunt and Barbara, they was kind of walking around, and Drew was at my brother Drew was at the foot. He was taking pictures, snapping pictures and stuff. And I say after a while, the angel's going to come, and they're going to be with her till she get resurrected in the world of spirits. And I say when they come, it's going to be a sweet fragrance that they come with them. And it's no set time that they come. But I was hoping that the hearse didn't come before that. The hearse had to come from Philadelphia. And that would be about 40-minute drive on a good day, but with the storming and stuff, I knew it would slow him down. And just so happened, he had went out on another trip before my mother, and that took time. So we had about a good 2 hours. And then after about 2 hours, I said, y'all smell that? Y'all smell that? The angels have came. And they got closer, and they could smell. So one could smell it faintly, one smelled it a little, but they smelled it. They smelled it fragrant. I could smell it clearly because I believed more, I guess. And it was a fragrance, just like I said, it was a flower, like a bouquet of flowers, but I knew the angels was there then. And my brother said he smelled it faintly, but he didn't lie. He said, I don't know if I smell it or not. But in the end, he said he called us a scripper because he didn't believe in that Christianity stuff. He didn't really too much believe in God because his dad and them, they ran juke joints all the time, and that's what he did, and his living was that. And but he said he smelt it. But I knew that my Aunt Budgie and my sister smelled it because they was surprised. I could tell in their eyes, in their face, that they smelled something. And I smelled it, clearly. I smelled it. So, and we stayed there with her until not too long after that, the hearse came and it had stopped raining. And so we went out to stand in the yard until they brought her out. The hospice people and the undertaker people, they went in and took over. They put her in this black bag, the body bag. And we was out there and waiting till they bring her out for the last time. And they brought her out and they put her in the hearse. And me and Drew was standing out in the yard. And my aunt and my sister was standing on the porch. And they drove away. And I felt kind of joyous, and I was excited that the angels was with her. I knew that the angels wasn't going to leave her until the infinite man resurrected the spirit out of the body, and she became a spirit woman then. And when they was pulling off, I remember I said, you remember that song that Big Mama used to like all the time, called by the Staple Singers, called "Let That Will Their Circles Be Unbroken by and Lord, by and by, Lord, by and by." I say, y'all remember that song? And they remember it. And I say, it's a part in there where Pop Staples is singing the song, and it makes you feel so sad. In part of that song, he says, "Undertaker, please drive slow, because that lady that you're hauling, oh, how I hate to see her go." And I was getting ready to say something else. Y'all, and my brother broke down crying. And then Barbara and then Aunt Buddy broke down crying. And she ran back in the house. And I said, well, yeah, they ain't on the same degree I on now. And so I just, went along with it. I just slowed down. Then I said, hey, I guess that's enough. I've said enough then. And that was when my mother, that was the last we seen of her until the funeral. And now we knew that she would be waking up over there in the world of spirit where everybody else was. And we didn't have to worry about it anymore. And I was glad that she was gone, get away from this man she was with. Because I remember she telling me that she was hurting and in pain. So one night, and she asked Roland would he hold her. And he turned over, turned her back to her. When Drew heard that, he wanted to go in there and really kill him. but I refrained him. And that's the way my mother dealt with it. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And if you ever get a chance to, stay with your. But usually they'll come get them quick if they die. But if you get a chance to stay there till the angels get there, and you'll know that your loved one is okay now. It's a sweet fragrance, and that fragrance is to keep evil spirits away from the dead person, because evil spirits can't stand anything that smells sweet and fragrant like flowers and stuff. But if you ever get a chance to do it, it's nothing like it. There's no doubt in my mind now that the angels do come to you, and you're gonna know that when I start reading the part about what happens to you really when you die. And I'm getting ready to get into that. But first, I want to get you set for how different cultures deal with their old people dying. And this is going to give you some feedback and give you some more knowledge. I just wanted you to know it. Now, they say the Hirilu, they're sick and old. They stack their old up on a wood pile. They're old people. And these are the people, not just old people that's still useful and can take care of themselves and not sickly and stuff. All of these is what they do with their old people when they're sick and they can't be of any more use. You got to take care of them and do everything for them and feed them. This is what these societies did with their elderly when they got to this state. The Hirilu, spelled Heruli, they had a stack of wood and they would put their old person up on a stack of wood and they would stab them in the heart and then they would burn them. Is that any worse than keeping them in the nursing home, till they die? You be the your own authority on it. But this is the way they handled it. They maybe didn't have nursing home at this point in time. So they get a stack of wood, put them on a stack of wood, and stab them in the heart, and then they would set the wood pile on fire. And then they would say that the spirits would be gone with the wind, and they would be gone. Okay, in India, they would kill their old people. When they, like you say, now these are old people that can't be of any more use. They're just not going out killing old people. Right? This is when there was no more use and they had to take care of them. In India, the old people there, they would ask one of their friends, closest friends, to come and murder them. And they would come kill them. And they would kill them, and then they would go on and have the funeral. Now, how you feel about that one? This is what people in India did to that, for their elderly people that was of no more use. Now, Japan and Korea, they really value their old people. They try to take care of them as long as they can. And but when they got too old and they got too infirm, the Japanese people, they would carry their old Japanese elderly person up on a mountain, and they would just leave them up there, and they would die on that mountain. So that's what they do. This is different cultures now, people. That's what they would do. Because when you get old, people will do you that way. I mean, that's why I love that song, Singing in the Heavenly Choir, by the quartet that sang that. The old man wanted to sing, but his voice had got, trembling, and the choir director told him that you too old to sing in this choir. You got a trembling in your voice. And the singer said, yeah, when you get old, they'll do you. The young people will do you that way. And so they take them up in their mountains. Japanese take them up there and leave them up in the mountain. Then in Sardinia, they would take their old people to a cliff and throw them over that cliff. That's how they would have their old people that could no longer perform uses and had to be looked after and cared for. They would take them to the edge of a cliff and they would throw them over there. And they call these people, get this, they call these people that would do it Terminators. They call them a Terminator. I know y'all seen the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator. He killed people. I don't know if they got that from this behavior pattern of Sardinia or not. But they call the people that would do this, the people, they call them the Terminator. Then you had people in Greece, now this here is really scary. People in Greece voted that all people over 60 was to commit suicide by drinking hemlock. I know a lot of you haven't heard of hemlock, but it goes way back. That's what most people committed suicide with, is hemlock. I think Socrates, one of those famous guys back then. That was sage back then with Aristotle. One of his mentors committed suicide with hemlock. But can you get this? They said that anybody in Greece, they voted this in. You know how we vote? They go down there and vote that this and that and other. They voted that all people over 60 to commit suicide by drinking hemlock. So if you were 75 like I am, you and lived in Greece, you wouldn't have fun. They would be asking, "Hey, Ray, it's about that time, isn't it?" I say, "Man, wait a minute. I'm gonna get around to it, but I can still get up and put my clothes on and fix my dinner and stuff and do what I want to do." But you say, "Well, all right, well then you better hurry up. We waiting on you." That's crazy, wouldn't that be? Could you do that, or would you do it? That's the thing. They would have trouble out of me, especially if I was able to take care of myself. And that was what they did in Greece. But the one that struck me the most, and I know probably some of you have heard of this, is what they do with the elderly up in Alaska, the Inuit Eskimos. They would take the elderly one morning, they would put them on a sled, and they would drag them out on an ice floe. And they would leave them out there, the freezers there, until a polar bear came and got them. And I saw a movie of that one time. I saw that in that movie. And they was, the kids, they hated to see it, but the old lady, she couldn't perform any more uses. She couldn't chew on any leather and make shoes out of it. And her hands had gotten to where she couldn't use them. And so all she could do was they would feed her. And that was it. And she just lay in the hut. They decided, the wife, how the wife is, she got to go. She ain't done. You know how mother-in-law is, they the most hated beings in the world as it is. I remember that song, Mother-in-Law. The guy say, "Sent from down below, mother-in-law." She used to be messing with him all the time. And this guy got up, took his mother, put her on the sled, and they said goodbye. The kids was, crying. Matter of fact, he did it before the kids got up. They didn't even know. All they know when they wake up the next morning, that there was going to be a space there, and the grandmother wasn't going to be there. Just the husband and the wife knew. So he got up early that morning, before sunrise, put on the sled, and started pulling her out to the ice floe. And the grandmother know what's going on. She just sit there. She don't say anything. And I was just looking at that. And I asked myself, "Ray, could you do that to Venice?" Because I know, saying if I was getting up to take Venice out to leave out to die out there and let a polar bear eat her up or something like that, I would be dragging, and pretty soon she would say, "You remember that time we were going over to get some dirt, to eat over to the dirt, and they used to eat dirt in the country. I don't know if anybody know about it, but eating dirt was a big thing back in the 50s and stuff. And after a big rainstorm that night, that's when the dirt was fresh and better. And so we were going over to the dirt later, and we came to this creek. And the creek might have been 20 feet long or so. And the water was just raging in it. And it was a log that normally I had walked that log before. When we went over to get dirt before. And I had walked that log, but that particular day with that water raging like that, the fear came over me. I couldn't do it. I could not go across that log. That water just, whoa. But my mother and my sister, Barbara, they just walked on across it like it wasn't nothing. But me, I just could not I couldn't do it. And they got across and they said, well, come on, son. I can't do it. I can't come across. I can't do it. You can do it. You did it so many times. I say, nah, but this time I can't do it. I just see myself falling over in there. And she said, well, look, what we going to do? I'm going to come back across and you grab me on both sides of my waist and you just step. You just walk. When I move, you just walk straight behind me. And that's the way they got me across that law. And of course, I told them that they better not ever mention this to any of my friends or anybody. And I could hear, and if I was pulling my mother like the Eskimos for the polar bear to eat them up, she would be saying, yeah, you remember that time you went across there and I had to come back across there and lead you across there? You remember that time? And I couldn't forget it. I would never forget that. Yeah, I remember that. And then I'd be pulling on for a while, and then she'd say, you remember that when you used to catch poison ivy every summer, and you would be itching, and you would be talking about committing suicide, and telling me to bring you the pistol, and bring you some poison, and one time you even told me to bring a big bucket of water in there, you were going to drown yourself in it, knowing you couldn't stay under that water that long. So, and I would get a pillowcase, and I would get a wet pillowcase, and I would just fan you till my arms couldn't hardly, because I couldn't hold my arms up until you went to sleep. And you would sleep sound for a long time until you woke up. And then we would have to go through the same thing. And in the meantime, your big mama would have to rub my arms down with liniment and just massage my arms up. And then I'll have to go back and do it all over again the next day. You remember that? And I couldn't help but remember because it was just like it was in front of my mind. Because she did that. She would did that. And I did want to commit suicide because that poison ivy, I would get it every year from the time I was 4 years old. Every summer I would get it. And it would just devastate my body. Big blisters would be on me, my face. I would look like a monster. Scabs all over myself. And itching would be just torment. And I would have to say, yeah, I remember that. And my will she would be getting to me because then she would say something like, you remember when we went to the Coney Island and you wanted to ride the big roller coaster? And wouldn't anybody ride with you? None of your friends wouldn't ride with you. They were scared. They hadn't ever been on anything like that. But you wanted to ride it. And you talked me into getting on there with you. And we got on that roller coaster and it looked like it wasn't going to ever get to the top. But once it got to the top and started down, you remember, we were screaming, we were terrified, we were screaming. Yeah, but soon it was over. You wanted to go again. But I had got you over that fear. You remember that? Yeah, and I would remember that because it was just like yesterday. I wanted to go on a roller coaster. Well, none of my friends who was supposed to be brave and ride, they wouldn't ride. But Bettis, she rode. She got on that road with me. And I know she was scared to go on there. And then she would, then I would be, then she would probably say something like, I was intending to have you a birthday party too this time. Because I know you never had a birthday party. And every time we tried to have one, something would come up. And I just have to cook you a cake. And at least you'd have the cake, chocolate cake by yourself or whatever. And you wouldn't have. But I was going to have you a birthday party after this winter. When June rolled around, I was gonna have you that birthday party. And see, that would do it then. I would turn that sled around and I would go back and tell my wife, hey, it ain't happening. This ain't happening. But that would be what my mother what Venice would do, because she was so intellectual, so intelligent, and she could get you to do things you didn't even know you was doing it. And that's where it would go with them. But now, this is the last part. This is the part that you're gonna never forget. And this is read what happens to you when you die. And this is, and Emmanuel Swedenborg, he experienced it. The Infinite Man let him go through the process. This is how it takes place, people. It said, on revival from the dead and entry into the eternal life. This will probably be listened to from here on out to eternity, because this is what happens to you when you die. Swedenborg said, when someone's body can no longer perform its functions in the natural world in response to the thoughts and affection of its spirit, which it derives from the spiritual world, then we say that the individual has died. This happens when the lungs, breathing, and the heart's systolic motions have ceased. The person, though, has not died at all. We are only separated from this physical nature that was useful to us in the world. The essential person is actually still alive. I say that the essential person is still alive because we are not people because of our bodies, but because of our spirit. After all, it is the spirit within us that thinks, and thoughts and affection together make us the people we are. We can see then that when we die, we simply move from one world into the other, into another. This is why in the inner meaning of the word death means resurrection and a continuation of life. The deepest communication of our spirit is with our breathing and our heartbeat. And you know that. That's because they're the two most important organs in the body, is the heart and the lungs. If those don't work, then you got to go. Though connects with our breathing and affection in an attribute of love with our heart. Consequently, when these two motions in the body cease, there is an immediate separation. It is these two motions, the respiratory motion of the lungs and the systolic motion of the heart, that are essential ties. Once they are severed, the spirit is left to itself. Now, I know y'all heard of systolic. When they take your blood pressure, they take your diastolic and your systolic. And your systolic is the one that's the most important. And then when that stops, that means you're just about on your way out of here. And so you can see that all of this makes perfect sense. It's not neglecting the body. It's just saying that the body can no longer perform its uses. Now the spirit has to take over. So let's keep reading. Once they are severed, the spirit is left to itself, and the body, being now without the life of its spirit, cools and decays. We know this. We know the body just started cooling down, because most of the time, if you ever watch Perry Mason and Matlock and all of these, Columbo, the first thing they'll go in and feel the body, and they'll know that the body is dead because of the coolness of it. Then if it stayed there longer, then it will begin to decay. So this is a genuine truth about this death and dying. It said, the reason that the deepest communication of our spirit is with our breathing and our heart is that all our vital processes depend on these, not only in a general way, but in a specific way. Everything in the body depends on the heart and the lungs. If the heart and the lungs ain't doing this thing, then the pancreas, the liver, the spleen, any other part of the body is going to have a hard time trying to do its job. So it says, after this separation, our spirit stays in the body briefly, but not after the complete stoppage of the heart, which varies depending on the cause of death. In some cases, the motion of the heart continues for quite a while, and in others it does not. The moment it does stop, we are awakened, but this is done by the Lord alone. Being awakened means having our spirit led out of our body and into the spiritual world, which is commonly called resurrection. Now, I know a lot of y'all have heard about the near-death experience. This is a big thing now. People come back and tell people what they experienced during a near-death experience. And a lot of people most of the doctors and the preachers and all them, they just wave it off. The doctors and the scientists say, oh, it was something in your brain. You had a dream in your brain. But some of it they can't explain. Like this one I'm going to tell you about. This lady was on the operating table, and her spirit raised up out of the body and remained above her while these doctors were working on her. And they were using these tools. And they would use these tools to saw open a place on her body. And she was watching them use these tools. And it was just like tools in a toolbox you have. You get it, and you would put this one on there, and you would take that one off, and you would put that tool on, and you would use that tool for that. She watched them until they finished doing everything they did, and then her spirit slipped back into the body, which happens all of the time when you have a near-death experience. The spirit goes out of the body for a while, like if you was in a car accident. It was one person in a car accident, and he said he could, when he hit, he said his spirit was out of the body because he could see the ambulance people and the police down there talking about his body, saying, yeah, he's going to be a DOA. And he heard everything that they said, and he was able to repeat it back to them when they got to the hospital, and he was revived. Although they didn't believe in that, they couldn't explain it. They said, how can he hear everything we said? And when the lady got back in her body and she woke up, she told the doctors and the nurses, she told each one of them where they were standing, what they were doing, she pointed out what tools they were using, and everything. And they were just flabbergasted. They couldn't understand it. But it's because the spirit is what lives in the body. The body doesn't live. It's the spirit in the body. And this just gives you more confidence that this is the genuine truth of how it happened. So let me go on. It said the reason our spirit is not separated from our body until the motion of the heart has stopped is that the heart answers to affection. That's just what you love. The heart answers to that. And attribute of love. And an attribute of love, which is our essential life, since all of us derive our vital warmth from love. Consequently, as long as this union lasts, there is a responsiveness, and therefore the life of the spirit is still in the body. This is just saying what you love. If you love money more, if you love power more, if you love your wife and your children more, your job, all of these things, your heart lingers on with that. That's what he's talking about. That's what the affection is. Anything you love, it just lingers on with your heart until the heart lets go of it. And then you can be the infinite man. Jesus can pull you out of the body then, because nothing has been left. You've done everything that you do. You loved everything that you could love in that body. Okay. I have not only been told how this awakening happens, I have been shown by first-hand experience. The actual experience happened to me so that I could have full knowledge of how it occurred. This is when every man, let Emmanuel Swedenborg go through the process that we all going to go through. And this is what he said. He said, I was brought into a state in which my physical senses were inoperative, very much then like the state of people who are dying. However, my deeper life and thought remained intact so that I could perceive and retain what was happening to me and what does happen to people after being awakened from death. I noticed that my physical breathing was almost suspended, with a deeper breathing, a breathing of the spirit, continuing along with a very slight and silent physical one. This is why when they examine you and with the stethoscope and they stick the feather up, that they don't get that feather don't move, then they think your breathing is gone. But see, internally you're still breathing, but this world can't pick it up. Your heart is still beating, but this world can't pick it up. At first, then a connection was established between my heartbeat and the heavenly kingdom, because that kingdom corresponds to the human heart. I also saw angels from that kingdom, some at a distance, but two sitting close at my head. Remember, I told you the angels were going to come when my mother Vetis died. They came. Two was sitting at the head. This is the process of it. He said, the effect was to take away all my affection, but to leave me in possession of thought and perception. I remained in this state for several hours. And that's what you do. But the angels get there, maybe in 1 hour, maybe in two, in some cases might get there early. It's just according to the way that you die. That's it. And let me say this. Whenever you die, like if you die in an explosion, or if your body's dropped off in a volcano, and you just this way, you are held in a state called limbus. Your spirit is still held in a state called limbus, and you still gonna be resurrected. If something might be able to kill the body instantly, blow it apart, but your spirit will be held in a state called limbus. And you will be resurrected just like everyone else. It said, then the spirit who were around me gradually drew away, thinking that I was dead. I sensed a sweet odor, that of an embalmed body, for when heavenly angels are present, anything having to do with a corpse smells sweet. Remember I told you that? There it is. He said he smelled the sweet fragrance. And that's what anybody else will smell if they stay there long enough for the angels to get there with them. Hey, isn't that amazing? Isn't that wonderful to know this? Now, I know that all of your loved ones, the people that you love that went through the dying process, and you and the ones that's going to go through the dying process, you know exactly what's happening to them. You don't have to grieve so much anymore. You don't have to wonder if you're going to see them again anymore. All it is just say, being patient, waiting till you get over there and your time comes. When spirits sense this, they cannot come near. That's talking about evil spirits. When the evil spirits sense that there's a sweet fragrance, a smell, they can't come near you. So they can't come near you and torture you while you're going through your dying process. Because if they could, they would come put all kind of thoughts and affections in your mind and in your spirit, and you could be able to take it. So that's why the infinite man has it this way. This is also how evil spirits are kept away from our spirit when we are being admitted into the eternal life. Yeah. They don't want an evil spirit nowhere around you. Okay, the angels who were sitting beside my head were silent, simply sharing their thoughts with mine. When these are accepted by the deceased, the angels know that the person's spirit is ready to be led out of the body. Yeah, when you give in to it, when you trust the angels now that's there with you, and you trust them now you say, I'm ready to become a spirit. I'm ready to come into that world. They accomplish this sharing of thoughts by looking into my face. This is actually how thoughts are shared in heaven. That means that and I've told people about this, in heaven you can't lie to people. You can't lie that you feel like this. You say, I feel happy, but you sad. I feel excited, but you are depressed. You can't do that in heaven. Everybody knows everybody there and what they feel. Your face, it tells in your face. Since I had been left in possessions of thought and perception so that I could learn and remember how awakening happens, I noticed that the first angels were checking to see whether my thoughts were like those of dying individuals who are normally thinking about eternal life. They want to keep my mind in these thoughts. I was later told that as the body is breathing its last, our spirit is kept in its final thought until eventually it comes back to the thought that flowed from our basic ruling affection in the world. If you were thinking about your wife, or thinking about seeing your family or your mother over there, or your kids, or anything that you were leaving behind, that last final thought just lingers with you until you are brought back into your affections of thoughts. It says, especially I wasn't able to perceive and even to feel that there was a pull, a kind of drawing out of the deeper levels of my mind and therefore of my spirit from my body. And I was told that this was being done by the Lord and is what brings about our resurrection. Now that's amazing thing. I know a lot of people going to say, how can the Lord raise the dead, resurrect the dead, everybody died? And I mean this in the whole universe. Everybody that dies in the whole universe, the same process is done by the Lord alone. But then when you think about that God is omnipresent, so he must have figured it out. He must have developed how he's going to do that. And it doesn't matter how many died, he will still be able to resurrect the individual and give him that time, just like he will everybody from the first creation throughout all eternity. The only person that will be able to deal with the dead and resurrect them is the Lord Jesus Christ, the infinite man alone. Don't that kind of blow your mind? If it doesn't, it should. Okay, moving on. He said, when heavenly angels are with people who have been awakened, they do not leave them because they love everyone. But some spirits are simply unable to be in the company of heavenly angels very long and want them to leave. When this happens, angels from the Lord's spiritual kingdom arrive, through whom we are granted the use of light. Since before this we could not see anything, but could only think. Now don't think about this, so I'm going to explain this to you. The reason that they want to leave the heavenly angels is that most people, for the most part, are evil and false. They think a lot of lascivious things. They're into a lot of sexual things. And heavenly angels only think of exploring and doing the 10 Commandments. They don't think about committing adultery, or stealing, or killing, or bearing false witness on the neighbor. And you can see yourself about this. There are some societies in the world that make you nervous when you go into it? If you go into a polite society of people who believe in monogamous marriages, believe in being true to their mate, being in taking care of their families, taking care of their jobs, not lying to people, not manipulating people, trying to do everything they can to help you, become a good and true person. They don't care about anybody smoking. They don't, and people cursing and using profanity. I know I've been in societies like that. You don't curse in the society. They'll ask you to leave. And there's a lot of societies like that. So you can imagine the angels that you come in contact with, and you sense that they are a really loving, true people, you would want to get away from them, especially evil and false people. People that have been in criminal activity and all kind of deviant behavior and did all kind of criminal things and sexual things, and when they realize that these people don't go for that, then you would want to leave these people. And this is what happened to you. You just keep moving to a different societies of people until you get to a society that feels just like you do. They just demonic and sexually deviant and willing to break the commandments, all of the commandments just like you do. Then now you comfortable. Now you in your in heaven. Now you've been resurrected. Now you living again. Now you can indulge in your same activities again. So you ready to go. You ready to go. But what you missed out on is that those heavenly angels, they could have took you up into heaven and they could have let you see such marvelous things and taught you such marvelous things as long as you could have stayed with them. When I get older, I plan to stay with them until they kick me out. I keep your mouth shut, and if you got any evil and false thoughts, keep them. Just don't try to keep them out of your mind. Listen to the angels and just be just like Robert. Just follow them around and use out things. And then the spiritual angels come in next. This is what he says. He said, I was shown how this was done. It seems as though the angels rolled back a covering from my left eye toward the center of my nose so that my eye was open and able to see. Now, just check this out. This is like, I'm going to take my glasses off for a minute. It's just like taking your left eye and he peels this off down here. He just peels that off of that eye and lay it on your nose there, and you can see now out of that eye. That's the way he says that it was done with him. But he said this happens with variety of people, and it might be different with everybody. But that's the gist of it. That's the way you are given your first sight when you resurrected in the spiritual world. And he says I could see a kind of clear but dim light, like the light we see through eyelids when we first waken up. It seems to me as though this clear, dim light had a heavenly color to it, but I was later told that this varies. After that, it felt as though something were being rolled gently off my face. And once this was done, I had access to spiritual thought. Now they roll the whole thing off of your face. It feels like this is happening to you. It seemed as though, wait a minute, after that, it felt as though something was being rolled gently off my face. And once that was done, I had access to spiritual thought. This rolling something off the face is an appearance, for it represents the fact that we are moving from natural thinking to spiritual thinking. Angels take the greatest care to shield the awakening person from any concept that does not taste of love. Then they tell the individual that he or she is a spirit. Isn't that the way a loving God would do it? I mean, it's just, when I've read it so many times, and it's just that, hey, you don't have anything to fear from death and dying. It's going to be the beautiful thing. And I read in the writing where they say that the deaf angels are some of the most gentlest angels in the whole heavenly kingdom. And they're going to take care of you, and they're going to do you right when your time comes to make your transition into the spiritual world. Now, there's more that can be read. But I'm gonna hope that you order this book that this is in. One of Emmanuel Swedenborg's books called Heaven and Hell. I'll give you a glimpse of it. Heaven and Hell. And it's so much in this book. But this is the main one that deals with the death and dying of the human beings. Now, I really had an enjoyable time bringing that to you people. And I just don't think that you're going to be able to forget that. And I think that if you keep this video, whenever you have a death in your family and you watch it, I think everybody will be more comfortable with the person dying. Because we all gotta get there. Like I said, when my mother Betty died, I didn't shed a tear. But when my brother died, I did shed a tear. Because I guess I wasn't expecting him to die. I expected him to be around and be my right-hand man. But it happened so quick. And grief, you can't help but to weep and wail when somebody you love dies. You can't help it. That's just part of the process. But with Vettis, we had been getting prepared for it for so long, and she had fought such a great battle with the cancer, 4 of them. So I was comfortable with her dying. I knew that where she was going now. And she was going to experience this, and she was going to be over there with Lou Gusta and Eliza and Jeannie and all of her other best friends in time and her relatives and aunts and everybody. So it wasn't anything to cry for, unless it would have been tears of joy. And that's really what you should think about when a person dies and when you hear about death again. Hey, it's been such a pleasure bringing this to you guys, and I hope it gives you some joy and some gladness and make you happy about your people that have already died and the one that's going to be dying in your own death. That's all I have to share with you. And this may be my last session, is according to what YouTube and I, if we can come to some type of monetary agreement or not. Until that time, that's all I got to share with you, and I'm anxious to move on.